Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast, where we focus on health and wellness and overcoming all types of addictions. You're in the right place if you're a mom, dad, sibling, or caregiver who has a loved one who is or was struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of addiction. In a time where everything seems heavy, I'm here to bring you a very real, yet lighthearted take on what the heck we're all supposed to do with our lives while we care for our loved ones who are struggling. One thing holds true throughout it all. You can't juggle the chaos without smiling. At least a little bit. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is Moira Gorski. I'm so glad that you are here. I have a really exciting announcement today and a few things to talk about just by myself here. And so just want to thank you for being here. If you do enjoy this podcast, I want to remind you to please write a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. If it's iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, it really helps other people find this podcast, and it really helps me know that this time that I spend here sharing with you is really making an impact in the world. So please make sure you write a review, share this with others. Find me on Facebook. We have a wonderful tribe, Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast tribe, where you can join us for some sharing and for some connection and different content that I share there every once in a while. So please find us there. But today I wanted to share about a journal that I just self-published. I'm so excited about it. And there'll be a link in the podcast show notes here that you'll be able to get your own journal. But I'm super excited that a couple of weeks ago, my journal is finished and it's available for you guys to purchase and to use, most importantly. Now, if you've been with me since the beginning of this podcast, which was the beginning of 2020, before the world kind of shut down, I did a series on my morning routine. And I've talked about that a few times on this podcast with others and by myself. And just in the journey, my journey of life, the last many years, I have learned to come to appreciate a morning routine. And within that morning routine are a few things. Getting up in the morning, get up when I wake up. I'm actually recording this fairly early in the morning because this morning I woke up early and just decided that I was going to get up. There was a reason why I woke up so early. Sometimes I think it's the universe telling us that we have things to do and we best get out of bed even though it's early and still dark out. But at any rate, my morning routine will consist of some meditation, some reading, some prayer, quiet time, and journaling and writing. And when I first started, and you'll see this in the journal, it's called the Journey to Joy Journal. It is through Barnes & Noble Self-Publishing. But you will find that in the journal, I do explain this in the beginning, that when people were talking about their morning routine and about journaling, I thought, I'm not going to journal because my penmanship has gotten not so good, gotten worse over the years. And so oftentimes if I write too fast, then I can't read my own writing sometimes. People have said that when I've given them cards and notes and things like that. So I try to be careful when I write to others. And yet, as I thought about it, I thought, it doesn't really matter it's not that I'm writing to write a book, although some tell me that I should write a book someday, really that I'm just writing to get things on paper. And so I decided to give it a try. And again, I didn't really know how to journal and what was I supposed to write about and why was it important and things like that. And you'll find that at the first couple of pages in this journal, again, I kind of go through my thoughts and some ideas of how I get journaling in the morning, especially the days that I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. And a good friend of mine, Laura Nosek, who I interviewed last year, dear friend of mine who really taught me the importance of yoga, she shared with me during a yoga retreat that she often starts her journaling out with gratitude. She'll just start out listing 5 or 6 things that she's grateful for. She writes a few things that she wants help with or needs help with. So kind of like her prayers. And then even just writes down her intentions for the day. And that's a really good place to start. And I often do that. I'll for sure start writing the things that I'm thankful for and being grateful for. I tend to, I don't know, how about you? I tend to sometimes look at all of the things that are not so good and often don't focus on the things and don't remind myself of all the things that are good and that I'm grateful for. So I really have, again, seen the importance of that, making sure that I start my day with gratitude. And again, often I'll write before I meditate or I pray. And so I'll write down those people that I'm thinking of, that I've heard that are suffering or that are sick or that need a little bit of prayer or intervention from God or the universe or things like that. And so I often write them down, and then they're first and foremost in my head, as I start to quiet myself down and sit quietly and meditate and things like that. So you'll find that in the journal, and I'm really pleased with it, and I really hope that you take a look at the link and go ahead and click through and get a journal of your own. Again, there's some guidelines in the beginning, and then as you go through this journal, it's not super, it's not dated. You can just journal at any pace that you want. I've kept it open so that if some days you want to sit down and you want to write a lot, you can just continue to write instead of having, like I've seen other journals that, okay, here's a page for today and then the next date and the next date. I've just left it open because, again, I know with me, some days I want to write a lot and there's a lot of thoughts coming out of my head, and other days it's just a few things. Maybe it's just one page. And you'll find some motivational quotes in there from some of my favorite authors. And you'll also find a couple of QR code links to my podcast, because there's some episodes that I thought, that I've recorded myself that, are kind of thought-provoking. Things about ballroom dance, that I've learned in ballroom dance, or the start, stop, and continue concept. If you haven't listened to that one, that's a really good one. And just other ones that about self-care and about love and things like that I thought, if you hadn't listened to them, if whoever buys the journal hasn't listened to them, go ahead and click through that QR code and listen to the podcast episode. And that may give you some thoughts to journal about. When I think about writing, it really, again, sometimes people write because they do want to publish a book. They're writing their thoughts down and it's going to go into some type of blog post or a book or something that's published. And yet, when you think about journaling, it can lead to that thing. But if we just be present with the idea of journaling and what it, why it's beneficial, writing really helps to clarify our thinking. And it creates freedom for additional thoughts. So as we write our things down, our thoughts that we have inside of our head, as we write them down, it clears our head. It takes it out of our head, puts it down on the paper, and then it clears up our head and our brains and whatnot to have additional thoughts. And when you think about that, it doesn't clutter our mind anymore. And I don't know about you, but there are some nights that I have a hard time sleeping or getting to sleep because I have so many thoughts in my head. And so I do have a journal by my bedside. I don't use it as often as I should, but that's a good place to put a journal, is by your bedside. So even before you go to bed, writing down some of those thoughts. Again, you can write down your gratitude at the end of the day and what you're grateful for, like what happened that day, what you're grateful for. And then again, write down some of those thoughts that you have, maybe things that you want to work on. And I don't know if you know anything about the reticular activating system, and I can share more about that later, but it's like your subconscious. I'd love to hear from you if you've done any work with the Pacific Institute and Lou Tice. He talks about the reticular activating system. But basically it's your subconscious, and there's some data to suggest that as we write things, say we write things down at night, we have these thoughts, then we go to bed and our subconscious kind of goes to work for us, thinking about those thoughts, thinking about those people, thinking about those plans that you're trying to make, trying to figure out and things like that. And so that's the importance of Again, having those thoughts, writing those thoughts down before you do go to bed at night so that your brain can start to work for you. Sometimes I'll be thinking about, again, somebody on my team that, I'm working with and that I'm trying to help provide some guidance or leadership for. And I'll think about that person and write some things down and kind of write down like what I hope for them in the coming days. And it's really kind of amazing. You go to bed and you think about those things, and before you know it, those type of things start to, I start to have conversations with that person about it, and they're open to different ideas and things like that. It's really kind of cool. I encourage you to try it. And so again, having a journal by your bedside and to write those things down so that you get those thoughts out of your head. And there's other days that often I just feel like there's so much going on. My husband even joked with me the other day because he's very intuitive. He's a wonderful guy who has a marketing and advertising business, but he's very intuitive. He does Reiki healing. And often he'll say, "Oh, I know exactly what you're thinking." And I'm like, "You don't know what I'm thinking." And we were joking the other day. I said, if only there were some days that you'd be in my mind, I don't know, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I got to get out of there." Because there's so many thoughts that I do have at times. And so sometimes that makes me feel like less grounded. And so that's another reason why I really love to journal. And don't put the pressure on yourself that it has to be like a long thing or, again, really neat. Sometimes just writing things, I'll find that I just kind of stop during the day, open up a journal, write some thoughts down, and it just helps me, again, clarify those thoughts that I'm having, especially if I want to remember something, like I'm really grateful for something that happened. It kind of memorializes those thoughts or those actions, those not actions, but the things that happened. I'm going into my morning routine after recording this podcast, and I'm just even thinking this morning as I was preparing to turn on the microphone, just a wonderful lunch that I had yesterday with my best friend who has been involved with me with my wellness business with Shackley for over 21 years and has become a dear friend. And our birthdays are really close to each other, a week apart. And so we always enjoy a birthday lunch every year. And I'm just so grateful for that. It was a wonderful part of my day yesterday. And I know that in my journaling session today, I'm going to write about that. So it kind of, when we do journal, it memorializes those thoughts. And again, it clarifies some of our thinking, and it really clears our brain. I find that sometimes I've started to write about something that's in my head, and as I continue to write, and that's what I encourage you to do, just be free-flowing. Don't be concerned, again, about, am I writing the right thing? What am I supposed to say? Just write. Just start to write about what's going on, and maybe the thoughts that you have. And then I encourage you to think about, think or at least be open to these thoughts that come to into your head, and write those down, because it's amazing. Trust me, it's amazing as you continue to write the clarity that you can have about certain situations. And sometimes when I've thought a certain way, like there's something I'm struggling with, or I'm frustrated with my kids or my husband or my business, I'll start to write those things down as I continue to think about, well, what does that mean? And what do you think this means? And I was thinking that it was this, and then it was this, and then they said this. You just continue to write those thoughts. Before you know it, you've got a lot of clarity right there in front of you in your journal. I do encourage you to have a journal around, even if it's this journal, buying a couple of copies of it, or having a little notebook that's in your car, in your purse, next to your bedstand, as I said, because when those thoughts come, you want to get them down right away, because often then you'll forget about them if you don't write them down right away. But just having those, I do have a little notebook in my car on my side, like, on the side in the door, the little pocket in the door, I'll have a little notebook there. And you can also, if you don't have a notebook and you have a thought that's come to you that you really want to, either write about or at least get down, open your phone up and put it in your voice memos or in your notes sections. You can record things there. And so speak into your phone. As you've heard me, there's times that I've recorded a podcast from my car because those thoughts are in my head, and I want to make sure that I get them out at that time and don't want to have to wait to get home and set up all this equipment so that I can record it so beautifully for you. So you want to get those, when you have those thoughts, write them down right away or speak them out, and then you can go back and listen to that when you have a chance, and then you can journal from there. So those are my thoughts on journaling, and I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm super excited, and I'm just super thankful for Haley, my virtual assistant, who helped me with this project. It's really a labor of love, just so much like this podcast as a labor of love. I'm super excited to have it out there, and I really hope you check it out because, as I've said, journaling has become something that I never expected I'd be doing, and it's something that has become so important to me, an integral part of my life, my journey of healing. But as I stated that I made the title of the journal, The Journey to Joy, because I believe that as we continue to, well, let's see, let me back up. As much as this podcast is called Juggling the Chaos, there could be a lot of chaos in life. And I thought about juggling the chaos to joy or something like that. And I thought, no, yes, we do juggle things in our life, but as we journal and as we open ourselves up to just the beauty of the life that we have and healing and being open to change or being open to lessons in life, we can have this journey into a more joyful life. And so that's why I named it The Journey to Joy. Again, super happy about it, mainly for you guys, and that you can grab a journal. Grab a couple of them, send them. I had a friend who I was so touched that she said, I'm sending this to my niece who's in college and she loves to journal. And so I sent it to her for a gift. So I encourage you to check it out. The link will be in the show notes here. And I'm excited if you're local here to Illinois, I am planning to Wheaton, to the town that I live in, I'm planning a open house book signing in October. So check your emails for that. Check the Facebook group. I will be sharing about that. Just getting together at a local place so that we can get together and celebrate the joy of journaling. And I can meet some of you, be together with some of you, and share my joy of journaling and the joy of this podcast. I'm inviting my past guests that I've interviewed that live in this area, and I'm super excited to just get together, have an open house, and just to get together and to just share, again, that joy of journaling. So thanks for listening today. Again, would love to hear from you and how you journal, what it has meant to you, and just any thoughts that you have on that. And again, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate the shares. I appreciate the reviews. I really do. And it is how we continue to get the word out. As you have heard so many times, I just want people to not feel like they're alone in this journey of life, be it that they're getting through their own addiction or eating disorder, or they're loving those around them that are struggling. I just don't want people to feel like they're alone. I want people to feel like there is hope out there and that we're all in this together and we can continue to support each other in this journey of life. So thanks for listening. This is your host, Moira Gorski. Hope you have a great rest of your day whenever you're listening to this, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? Please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.